Welcome to Concrete Block, the podcast where we dive into the latest news and current events. It involves the Trump administration, the IRS, and a settlement agreement that sparked widespread controversy. At the center of this story is Todd Blanche, the acting attorney general who has been nominated to take on the role permanently. Blanche has been under fire for his handling of a settlement agreement between the Trump administration and the IRS, which includes a provision granting immunity to former President Donald Trump, his sons, and other affiliated individuals. The agreement was reached in May after Trump sued the IRS for $10 billion, alleging that the agency had failed to keep his tax returns private. However, the settlement has been widely criticized, with many questioning why the administration would agree to such terms. The controversy deepened when it was revealed that the agreement included a provision for an anti-weaponization fund, which would provide payouts to individuals who have been convicted of crimes related to the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. Blanche has since backtracked on the anti-weaponization fund, stating that it's not moving forward. However, he's refused to formally rescind the agreement, sparking concerns that the administration could try to revive it in the future. The immunity provision has also raised eyebrows, with many arguing that it's overly broad and could potentially shield Trump and his associates from accountability for any wrongdoing. As we delve deeper into this story, it's clear that there are many unanswered questions. What were the motivations behind the settlement agreement? Why did the administration agree to such generous terms? And what implications does this have for the rule of law and accountability in the United States? We'll be exploring these questions and more as we continue to follow this developing. Canate said. We'll also be examining the potential consequences of this settlement agreement and what it could mean for the future of American politics. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're diving into a fascinating discussion about the potential for a strategic investment fund in the United States. The idea behind this fund is to mobilize capital to serve long-term national aims, particularly in competing with China's rising economic power. Proponents of the fund argue that it would provide a much-needed tool for the U.S. to rebuild its industrial base and promote innovation in key sectors. On one hand, a strategic investment fund could be seen as a way to level the playing field against countries like China, which have been accused of unfair trade practices and subsidizing their own industries. By providing targeted investments and risk sharing, the fund could help U.S. companies compete more effectively in the global market. Additionally, it could also help to address issues like climate change and national security by promoting the development of critical technologies. On the other hand, critics argue that such a fund could be prone to corruption and favoritism, with political leaders using it to reward cronies or enrich themselves. Others worry that it could lead to wasteful spending on unproven technologies or inefficient industries. Furthermore, some argue that the government should not be picking winners and losers in the market, and that private investment is better equipped to allocate capital efficiently. It's also worth noting that there are already existing mechanisms, such as tax credits and tariffs, that aim to encourage reindustrialization and promote domestic industries. However, these instruments may not be sufficient to address the complex challenges posed by China's rise, and a strategic investment fund could potentially provide a more comprehensive solution. Ultimately, the debate around a strategic investment fund highlights the need for a nuanced discussion about the role of government in promoting economic growth and national competitiveness. As we consider the pros and cons of such a fund, it's essential to approach the issue with a critical and open-minded perspective, weighing the potential benefits against the potential risks. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're closing out today's show with a look at the escalating tensions in the Middle East. The conflict between the U.S. and Iran has taken a new turn, with Saudi Arabia now openly involved in the fighting. According to recent reports, the U.S. and Saudi Arabia have launched strikes against Iran, backed militias in Iraq, following a series of attacks by those militias. The situation is complex, with multiple countries and factions involved. Iran has been supporting various militias in the region, including some in Iraq, as part of its broader strategy to exert influence in the Middle East. The U.S., on the other hand, has been seeking to counter Iranian power and protect its own interests in the region. The entry of Saudi Arabia into the conflict adds a new layer of complexity to the situation. Saudi Arabia has long been a rival of Iran, and the two countries have been engaged in a proxy war in Yemen for several years. The Saudi decision to join forces with the U.S. in striking Iran-backed militias in Iraq suggests that the kingdom is seeking to take a more active role in countering Iranian influence in the region. As the situation continues to unfold, it's clear that the stakes are high. The conflict has the potential to draw in other countries and escalate into a wider war. It's also likely to have significant implications for global energy markets, as well as for the stability of the Middle East as a whole. We'll be keeping a close eye on this story as it develops, and will bring you updates and analysis in future episodes of Concrete Block. For now, it's clear that the situation is volatile and unpredictable, and that all parties involved are walking a delicate balance between confrontation and diplomacy. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay informed.